Hello, and welcome back to Sex, Love, and the Self. I hope you all had a wonderful week and gave yourself a little freedom to get a little wild. Just a quick reminder that if you want to make 2024 the year you manifest your best self and your best life through self-love, there are books, workshops, and even personal support programs available on my website geared to do exactly that and guide you through that process. That's authorjacquelineLenae.com. Okay, let's dig in. A few weeks ago, I told you guys about how I gave myself permission to get a little wild and indulged myself in a few days of pleasure with a very pleasurable man. It was an incredible experience. If you want to hear more about all the decadent little details, you can join us over on Patreon, where I get into the kind of nitty-gritty personal parts of that experience. But the point is, I knew that I needed to do that. I knew that I needed to give myself some pleasure, some time to connect with someone. And I have to admit, it was such an incredible trip that when I first got home, it was kind of hard. I was kind of sad. There was a part of me that just wanted to stay in that version of life. Even to the point where I thought, maybe I'll just sell everything and travel, live out of my car. Why not? There's a freedom in that. And as I explored the ideas more and the reasons that I felt kind of heavy back here in my apartment in Bogota is because there's such a sense of life, such a sense of being alive. When we give ourselves those opportunities to just enjoy, there's a beautiful freedom in that traveling. And the decadence of adventure is just something I didn't know that I needed so much in my life. I had no idea how important adventure was to me. Having new experiences, trying new things, pushing myself, my body specifically. It just gives me this sense of seizing life. And that's really what I wanted to do on that trip, which is exactly what I did. But I liked it so much, I got so immersed in it, that I started to toy with the idea of moving to Medellin. And I might still, and I'll explore that further over on Patreon. But the point is that I wanted to stay there in that version of life. And yes, it had everything to do with the adventure itself, the experiences that I was having. But it probably also had something to do with my little pleasure prince that accompanied me. We just got along so well. I enjoyed him so much. We had so much in common. And I noticed as the days went on that I wanted to let myself fall in love with him. I felt myself struggling against the desire to just swim in a dreamy version of life in which he and I were a match made in heaven and deeply loved each other and were looking forward to a future together. And I don't know how falling in love for me began to equate to projecting into the future, but it just does. It just did. There was something about knowing that this experience with him, this relationship that he and I were having in those days was only for those days. That felt sad. I was fighting against my desire to imagine a future with him, a desire to dream about what our life might be like if we could really be together in a committed romantic relationship. But the thing is, I know he's not boyfriend material. I know that. So why the desire? Why this deep, almost sadness that the whole thing was temporary? As I sort of explored the emotions back home, I realized that it was like I wanted to hoard the love. Like I wanted to keep his love as a safe place. I wanted to dream about a future with him so that I could sort of put my heart at rest and imagine or believe that this future with him would be easy, perfect, that we could sort of build a future in our shared love for each other. It seems like there's a comfort in that idea that this person deeply loves me and I deeply love him. And I realized part of my desire to project into a future with him, to sort of put our love out there in the future, was because I wanted to be able to live in the safety of that, as though I could sort of save up the love and put it out there in the future so that I would feel safe and protected, and I could just always be in that love. It would always be there for me, which of course is a falsity, but the reality is that I believe that perspective, that desire to hold on to that, comes from an inherent sense of lack that we're all fed and we so easily buy into. Hold on to what you have because it might not be there in the future. There's this idea that I can sort of protect this love by putting a label on it somehow and sealing it up and saving it. Of course, I think it's essential that we give ourselves the opportunity to dream about what our future might look like, what we would want it to look like, but more as an effort of self-exploration, getting to know ourselves, getting in deep about why we want what we want. But I think a lot of us, me at least, I take it too far. The way that I give so much of my time and mental energy planning for and preparing for and dreaming about a future. I think collectively there's this idea that when we have the perfect job, then we'll be happy. And when we have the big fat savings account, then we'll be happy. And when we've got the right relationship, then we'll be happy. And we do that to such a degree that we forget to live in the moment, particularly when the way that we're living our lives, the ways in which we're living our lives, feels like it's not adding up to that future or not leading up to that future that we have planned. It's like we've got this underlying unspoken belief that if we can build a future in our minds with the perfect love and the perfect bank account, the perfect money, the perfect job, we can somehow save ourselves from any loss, from sadness, from disappointment, from pain. It's like we have this little list, and when we find the right relationship or the love or the money or whatever, we can just, check, that's sorted. Now that part of my life won't hurt. Now that part of my life can't collapse. But of course, the reality is that absolutely it can. And at the risk of sounding a tad dramatic, it likely will. Because even if we could somehow hoard or hold or protect, define with labels and fence in love, for instance, that doesn't mean that in the future there won't be heartbreak. That doesn't mean that even if the love is as perfect as we want and believe it to be, that there won't be loss, that we won't lose our partner or lose the love, or that we won't change and need something else at some future point. And the same is true with more terrestrial resources. Money, there's no guarantee that we won't build this huge fat savings account and then suffer some kind of loss. Perhaps there's a global economic recession, or perhaps we make a bad investment and we lose everything. Or perhaps all the money we thought we had and would need isn't worth as much as we need it to be, and so it doesn't go as far. It won't last as long. It won't actually keep us safe, quote, protected in the future. Yes, it perhaps is less likely that we'll suffer the same kind of loss or poverty, but it's the future. Nobody knows. We can't know. And of course, the same is true in relationships, perhaps even more true in the context of love, because we could have the world's happiest relationship. We could literally be soulmates with our partner and still have heartbreak, still suffer loss. And I don't mean to get all heavy and doomsday-y by any means. I want us to invest in our futures, absolutely. I want us to be able to dream about the realities that we want in an effort to manifest those things in our lives. But I think also it would be helpful for all of us, or at least for me, to just bear in mind that those are dreams, that future isn't guaranteed. It won't matter how much I save or how perfect the love is or what kind of resources I can sort of lock up and store away. There will be loss. I think the acceptance of the knowledge that everything is temporary can be useful. I mean, of course, it's scary to think of the idea that we are investing in our relationships and in our financial futures and all of that, and everything could all go to shit, of course. But we don't have to focus our energy on the scary element of that. We don't need to project into that future either. It's just a reality. It's just a measure of acceptance where we can just say, you know what? There is safety in accepting that because it's going to happen. Of course, I can't prepare for it. Of course, I can't know what kind of change will come in my life, what kind of loss or pain I might suffer. But because I can't know that, because I can't prevent that, I can set myself free to live in the moment that I'm in. And we can remind ourselves that hard shit has happened before. We've been through tough stuff. We can do it again. And I don't want that to feel heavy. I don't want that to be sort of steeling ourselves against a future that is full of lack and loss and sorrow. That's not the point. The point is to just relax, rest, release, trust in ourselves, in the universe. That yes, we probably will go through other hard times. Yes, we probably will suffer losses. Yes, those things are probably going to happen. And they're going to make us stronger. They're going to make us better people. There will still be joy in our lives. There will still be love. There will still be wealth and success. I think, at least in my case, I had this idea that I could build this future that would protect me when in reality, of course, it can't, because I thought that was safer. But I'm coming to realize, in part because of this beautiful trip with my pleasure prince, that it is actually safer for me to live in the moment. The future never happens the way I expect it to anyway. And everything changes. Life is change. That's just part of the deal. But if I'm not putting all of this energy and intention into dreaming about a future, into holding on to what I have to protect myself from loss in the future, I won't be disappointed when things don't work out the way that I thought they would, or when things start to collapse in my life, which is just a symptom of change. When our lives feel like they're going to shit, what's really happening is that we are outgrowing that version of ourselves. We are outgrowing our past and coming into a different future. And why do we think that that version of the future is going to be worse than the one that we have? It's that same idea of worrying about a future, which of course is useless. Trying to anticipate and prepare for and adjust for and prevent tragedy or loss in the future obviously is futile. And what's more, it keeps us from living and enjoying the moment that we're in. Everything ebbs and flows. Change is life. Life is change. And thank God, I do not want to go through my life being the same person all the time, acting the same way, doing the same things over and over and over again. I want change. We need change. Trying to kind of hold on to and hoard things, love, even money, whatever, for the future also implies a belief system that we don't think it's going to be there. It implies that we believe on some level that our lives are going to get worse, or that we aren't powerful enough / deserving enough to have the lives that we want, which of course is devastating on several levels. It disempowers us, first of all, to manifest what we really want. If we, on an unconscious level, believe that there will be lack in our future, we're both going to create that and disempower ourselves from creating something else, from creating abundance and love in the future. And the truth is that there will be abundance and love in our futures. Of course, again, because everything ebbs and flows. So why not live more in our moments? Why not be here now? Why not give ourselves the gift of presence in our current lives exactly the way that they are, and make peace with the reality that they're going to change, but that we're strong enough to get through that, and that they very well might be better on the other side. There very well may be more blessings awaiting us after we go through hard things, which speaks to the other idea here, that planning out our future, holding on to our resources to sort of craft the future that we want, also both keeps us from living in the present and enjoying what we have in this particular moment, but it also closes us off to the possibility that our lives will actually be more wonderful, more abundant, more loving, more successful on the other side. That if we can stop trying to build a future and live in the present, we can reap the rewards that are already out there in our future, that are planned for us, destined for us on some level, that our soul is perpetually drawing us toward. Imagine putting all of that out there and creating this future from the, quote, savings that you've attained to this point, money, love, the house, whatever. And you get to that future point and realize you're not happy because perhaps you've changed, but perhaps there's a different version of future that you could have that would actually be better than the one that you imagined, that the one that you intended to sort of build for yourself. How sad would it be to live in a future version of ourselves that is decadent and luxurious, a life that we love living, but that we can't actually enjoy because it doesn't look like we thought it would? Because we decided somewhere in the past that a safe, successful, happy future would look a certain way. And now that we're there in that future, and those other realities might be true, but they didn't come the way that we thought they would, devastates us. And then we're living in a future that we don't actually love living. And we've closed ourselves off to all of the beautiful blessings that could be brought to us by the universe, blessings that we may already have in hand and just can't see. The truth is, there will always be more time until there isn't. Nobody knows when the end is. So we just have the time that we have in the moment that we're in. And that doesn't mean that we have to hurry up and do it all now, check all the goals and dreams off the list, but rather, perhaps the great gift, as cliche as it is to genuinely live in the present and accept that there may be pain or loss in our future, but that we are living wholly and fully in our moments. And another beautiful little blessing that comes in the idea of accepting loss and struggle and destruction in the future and living in the moments that we're in, it helps us to prioritize what we really value in our lives, how we're going to spend our time, how we're going to spend our resources. I think there's a beauty in the acceptance of the reality that in every context, nothing is guaranteed. So let's do what we want. Let's do what fulfills us in the moment. And that's not to say, of course you could take this idea too far. That's not to say that you run willy-nilly through your life without thinking about the future consequences. Of course, there will be consequences. Of course, the things that you do now will impact your future. But you could live a more joyful, full, rich, playful, exciting, wonderfully loving life if you can accept the fact that the moment that you have is the only guarantee. And in living in those moments, in attempting to shift our focus to being in the present and loving the moments that we're in, loving living our lives in the moments that we're in, will allow us to receive more, will allow us to see and receive the blessings that are already in our lives, the stuff that's already wonderful. If we can believe that there will be love and success and wealth and abundance in our futures, we're even more open to receiving it and giving it. Of course, like I said, it's a good idea to invest in our futures, financially specifically, and in terms of our health. Because even though we can't build a Fort Knox version of protection of our future selves, we can gather resources that we can later draw on. We can plan for our futures. We can dream of our futures with our partners. Why not? Open yourself up, manifest whatever you want to create, but hold on to the knowledge that those dreams might not come true. And that doesn't have to be sad. Perhaps you will live even greater dreams, things you can't fathom right now. For me, I realized that my opportunity, my lesson with my pleasure prince was about living in the moment, enjoying what I have and not trying to hold on to it or hoard it for the future. I loved him in those moments, those days that we had together, and he loved me, but we both knew it was temporary. And as sad as that felt at first, it's actually quite freeing. I was given a gift of several days of delight with a wonderful human with whom I had a great connection. And that can be it. It can be okay to let that be all there is, ever, between us. And it will still be beautiful, arguably more beautiful than if I tried to hold on to that connection, extrapolate that love, that sensation, and put it out into the future, which of course then would come with all kinds of expectations of him. Expectations he might not be aware of, that he likely can't meet, because they're imaginary. It's a future, it's a dream. But we can dream together. We did, about seeing each other another time or investing in each other's professional lives. But the key for me was to stay present in the moment that I was in and not try to seal up a future with this person. And that is such a beautiful thing. It's actually so liberating to live in the moment. And arguably it's safer. It's likely that I won't suffer heartbreak with this person because I know that it's temporary. And there's safety in that. I can just live in the moment that I'm in and not suffer heartbreak. It's actually more protective for me in my world. It's safer for my heart to just know that whatever situation I'm in, whether it be romantic or financial or whatever, is temporary. There's a freedom in that, and I want to be able to embrace that. I want us all to be able to embrace that because it is such a foundation of freedom and such a beautiful way to give ourselves permission to soak up the moments that we're in, decadently live the life that we have, I want us to be able to find peace in coming to terms with the reality that everything is temporary, but that gives us a gift of living more intentionally, more joyfully in the moments that we're in and the reality that we have. Ultimately, I hope we can all give ourselves the gift of presence in our moments, in our lives, exactly the way that they are. I hope you take some time to enjoy living in your moments this week. Join me next week for more stories about the ridiculously beautiful and sometimes hilarious adventure it is to be human. If you liked this podcast, please remember to subscribe and consider joining us on Patreon, where, like I said, I share all of the nitty-gritty details, the more personal elements, and the hows, the exploration of the ways that we can adjust our energies to love ourselves, our lives, even more. Learn more at patreon.com/Jacqueline Lene. And if you'd like to create more self-love, live with more joy, and transform your own life through the process of loving yourself more, there are loads of resources available on my website at authorjacquelinelene.com. That's JACLYNLANAE. Thanks for listening.